Do you
Good
agree
night,
with these
Wendy.
sentiments from Ms. Dukharan? Because for a long time now, double taxation treaties have been a central pillar of the island's international business sector.
Thanks, Wendy. Yes, Marla did discuss quite a wide range of issues. First, I would note that she particularly pointed to the unequal taxation treaties with EU nations. And I would point out that the majority of our global business sector in Barbados comes out of Canada. We've had quite a robust and beneficial double taxation treaty with Canada for over 50 years now. And so we have seen, I know that in the voiceover, they spoke about in terms of tax losses, but you would note that even though our global business sector in Barbados is only equates to about 10% of the businesses in Barbados, we actually provide about 70% of the corporate taxes, would have contributed close to $250 million in corporate taxes this year. In the first quarter, I believe the central bank would have pointed out. So while that is definitely a risk across the globe, you would note that she was speaking about broadly over 3,000 in her lecture. She mentioned that she was speaking about over 3,000 tax treaties across the world. Barbados has a tax treaty network of about 30, which have been negotiated primarily with, as I mentioned, Canada, the CARICOM nations, and some further afield in Africa, the Middle East, the Far East. So yes, China, UAE, etc. We are negotiating treaties or have negotiated treaties. So there is a wide range. It's not strictly or primarily with the EU, even though we do have some tax treaties with some EU nations as well.
In terms of Barbados, should we be considering changes to be made to these treaties or the total abandonment of them?
Well, I don't think we're going to abandon them. We are considering changes to them. As Marla would have mentioned in her lecture, the global minimum tax has started to take effect and will take effect amongst the nations who have signed on to it fully from 2025. And as a result of that, we do have to relook our bilateral investment treaties and our double taxation treaties. And I know that our treaty negotiating team is actively looking at that. And this treaty negotiating team is made up of both government and private sector members, including some representatives from BIBA.
Do small countries like Barbados really have any say as it relates to the global tax framework?
So one of the things that I would note is that we are a member of the multilateral convention that the OECD implemented to implement the global minimum tax. In the beginning, we were one of the few nations on the outside, and I know our prime minister, one of the things that she was focused on was the fact that we can't make any difference if we're on the outside, clamoring and protesting. And so that was one of the reasons that we did sign on. And the idea is that we have to be at the table to have a voice.
Okay. I want to thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Haynes.
You're welcome, Wendy.